Are you ready to make a difference in the lives of others? If so, then you should consider becoming a recovery coach. Recovery coaches are trained to help people in recovery, seeking recovery, or struggling with addiction. They provide support, guidance, and resources to help people on their recovery journey. CCAR Training is the leading provider of recovery coach training programs. Our programs are designed to teach you the skills and knowledge, what we call the science, while giving you an understanding of your own art needed to be a successful recovery coach. We offer a variety of training options, most offered online. If you're interested in becoming a recovery coach or just learning more, I encourage you to visit our website or contact us today. We would be happy to answer any questions you have and help you get started on your journey to becoming a recovery coach. We hope you'll visit us at www.addictionrecoverytraining.org to learn more.
Are you in the recovery field and looking to expand your knowledge of the many pathways to recovery? Do you want to network with the nation's leading recovery leaders? If so, then the Multiple Pathways of Recovery Conference is for you. CCAR, Recovery Iowa, and the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services are bringing the message of multiple pathways to our friends in the Midwest. Join us August 21st through the 23rd at the Embassy Suites in Des Moines, Iowa for the National Recovery Conference, where we share and educate one another about the many different pathways, methods, practices, programs, and belief systems recoveries can use to enhance their recovery journey and sustain long-term recovery. Whether it's a 12-step, secular, a spiritual religious modality, medication-assisted recovery, or wellness-based and sober active communities, we've got you covered. At MPRC, you'll have the opportunity to connect with the recovery community, broaden your knowledge of the multiple pathways, and be refreshed in your journey of recovery, whatever that may be. So don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Tickets are on sale now at ccarconference.org. That's ccarconference.org. The Multiple Pathways to Recovery Conference, the National Recovery Conference, where all pathways to recovery meet.
This conference brought to you by CCAR, Recovery Iowa, paid for by State Opioid Response Funds, the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services Bureau of Substance Use via sub-award from the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Join us on the Recovery Matters podcast, where we celebrate the power of resilience and explore multiple pathways to recovery.
Phil, last summer you wore a lot of Hawaiian shirts.
I did.
That I bought you.
Yes.
From a reputable company.
Right.
That a lot of dads could be seen wearing.
Old Navy.
Old Navy. Well, hey, let's not be dissing Old Navy. But what has happened over the last 6 months, because you responded some clickbait somewhere along the line.
Yep, Facebook got me. Facebook ads.
Your shirts have become more interesting than a simple Hawaiian shirt.
I agree.
And I find it funny that you teach recovery coaching and professionalism, and you wear very unusual shirts like the one today, which is covered in a Volkswagen bus with a surfboard and says the beach.
Life is better at the beach is what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of your conservative ones.
It is because, I was going to be on podcast. Hi, everybody.
So there was a time where you just wore a simple golf shirt and khaki pants. And over the last 30 years...
This is the artist in me coming out. I'm expressing myself. I want to fill the world with color.
Is that true?
Partly.
One Hawaiian shirt at a time.
Exactly.
Well,
One pair of socks.
I was good with the Hawaiian shirts, but these have become really interesting. He had one with Grateful Dead.
Jerry Garcia
smoking a doobie on his shirt.
It wasn't a doobie. It was just a cigarette.
I don't think he just smoked cigarettes.
So we had a leadership team meeting, right? And there's one of our staff people who shall remain not nameless, Don Smith, that is a huge Grateful Dead fan. And so I said, I hope this isn't triggering anybody. You know what he said?
No.
He says, it's triggering us to have a good time.
Well, I'd like to segue from that good time to having a good time with our guest today.
Well, I think we will.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi.
Katrina, we're going to talk a little bit about your story, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about telling your story?
I'm a little nervous.
Are you?
A little bit, yeah. But I'm excited. It's been a minute.
Have you been on a podcast before?
This is my first.
Is it?
It is, yes.
I'm honored. Are you honored?
Yes, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
You want the typical standard first question.
Throw it at me.
What was little Katrina like?
Oh man, she was very quiet and I was a very good kid. But I was very quiet. Little Katrina went through a lot, and I think that was the beginning for me is the trauma growing up led into what fed my addiction.
So what was your first memory?
I remember more of the feeling. I remember constantly feeling the need of things being out of my grasp. Like I wanted to feel comfort and safe. And those were my first emotional feelings, I think.
So when you say out of your grasp, are you like the kid reaching up for what are those things that we used to put on top of their
Brass rings.
Oh,
The mobile?
brass ring.
On the merry-go-round, you reach for the brass
Yeah,
ring.
no, well, we were in a crib, like the
Yeah.
could never get those.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They were out of your grasp.
So I'm curious about two things. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in East Hartford as a kid. And then around 10 years old, I moved to Tallinn, Connecticut.
Okay. And then my second question is, you mentioned being a good kid. What is a description of a good kid?
A good kid. I didn't get into much trouble. I listened. Being a good kid was almost a defense mechanism when I was that small. Of I didn't want to get in trouble, but I also don't think that there was a figure to be around to see me getting in trouble either. If that makes sense.
Did you grow up with both parents in the house?
So my parents divorced when I was in the 3rd grade. My mother struggles with addiction, so she's an alcoholic. And my father, he drank very heavily when they were together and they worked at a bar together. So I actually didn't see them a lot growing up. So I was very unsupervised, and I didn't have that comfort of having a parent really guiding me through being a child. I had a lot of siblings, but you can't leave kids to raise kids. It just kind of causes us to be a little more messed up.
How many siblings?
I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters. I'm the baby.
Oh, wow.
That explains a lot. No.
Yeah. That is a lot. Our oldest son actually thought he was the extra parent in our house. No, but he also thought we were too relaxed.
Yeah.
Sounds like that probably wasn't the parenting style of your siblings.
No. We're very tight-knit. I think that we have like a trauma bond, me and my siblings. We'll always have each other's back, but it was hard growing up. We didn't grow up rich either, living off of like mayonnaise sandwiches and like sugar and, whatever we could get our hands on. So it was a rough upbringing, and it was sad as a kid to not feel your parents around you. So that was, I think, my first memories was just not feeling protected. We weren't all in the same house at the same time, all the siblings.
Really?
So I have 3 brothers from my dad's previous marriage. So they were in and out, and they're a lot more grown up. So they were kind of living their own lives. Yeah, there's big age gap.
So when did the first introduction to substances begin?
When I was 11 years old.
You remember that exactly?
I do. I had already kind of had sips of alcohol just from it being like left around, thinking that I was taking a sip of soda, but it was really soda with Jack. And, so that was like my birthday parties, accidentally drinking alcohol or a beer. And I didn't like the taste of it. But when I was 11, my sisters tried to scare me, and they were like, here, have some tequila. Here's some Rumplements. Here's some of the really hard stuff. And the goal was to scare me from being like, oh, it tastes really bad. But I liked it. I took it with the straight face, and they were like, we fucked up. They're like, wow, you're a mother's daughter. So, and I, in fact, was. So that was the first time I drank and the first time I got drunk. And then after that, I'd continue to kind of sneak alcohol. And I was still a kid. So I was, just drunkenly being a kid, walking into walls. And yeah.
I feel like I hear the age 11 so often. What is it about age 11 folks start?
Puberty sucks.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you, so you think after that first drink that you were almost alcoholic from the very first drink? Do you think that of yourself?
It awoke something in me. I had all these inner demons from all the neglect, all of the type of abuse that I went through as a kid. And alcohol started off by numbing that. So like I went from not talking because I was so depressed, never said a peep, to alcohol got in me, and I was this bright, exciting person, and I was outgoing even as like a young kid. I was like, wow, I can find, the troublemakers. I'll fit in with them, because I also didn't feel like I fit in with anybody. And I had all these emotions and anger and sadness and feeling like an outcast and no tools. I had no idea what to work with, or why I was feeling what I was feeling, or I just knew alcohol made me feel better. And that led to smoking weed, to taking pills, to doing coke, to doing whatever I could get my hands on, unfortunately.
That is such a common theme. It's my story.
Yeah.
Even this ancient old guy. And I drank and my social anxiety went away.
Yeah.
Just like that. It was liquid courage.
Yeah.
And I thought it made me able to tolerate the world that I had grown up in. You have a very similar story too.
Yeah, it was part of getting dressed to go out. It was just all part of putting on like an armor to allow me to be social and with folks. And that happened with my first real drink. 20 minutes later, I'm dancing in a circle of men.
Yeah, feeling like you're on top of the world, right?
On top.
Well, she was on top of the table.
Hey, that's all right. I was on the floor. Okay. I was on the feet on the floor.
That's all right.
Anyway.
So talk to...
I have a question.
Good.
Any adults come alongside you growing up or see the struggles you might be having?
No. So I was very good at living in the shadows. So I was invisible growing up. There was so much chaos and fighting and just dysfunction and toxicity in my households that I was invisible. The attention wasn't on me. So I could get away with whatever as long as I was quiet with it. And I think it did start off as a cry for help. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to get in trouble at one point. Like, yell at me, see me. Like, I'm hurting. Do you see me? But then it just was like, wow, it's kind of fun.
How did you... I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they were good at living in the shadows.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with that? Where did you find that?
That's just how I felt.
That's how you think about it. That's remarkable. And being invisible.
Yeah.
Did you know it at the time that's what you were doing, or is this reflection?
At the time, I just knew I felt invisible, and it was like nothing I could do could make me visible, is how I felt. So I kind of just embraced it after a certain point. But I mean, it caused issues, like I was angry in middle school, such an angry kid. And
I can't imagine you angry.
I know. I look back, I'm like, who was that? But like I wasn't happy. And so I mean, that feeling invisible at home and with family came out in very negative ways. And it fed into the beginning of my addiction.
Can you share an example? Because you have a very sweet disposition and countenance.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine.
I mean, I just tried to be this tough guy. I didn't care. I played this persona that no one could hurt me and I don't care about anybody and fuck you, pretty much. That's who I was. Just didn't care.
Did you base that on a character or anything that you saw or admired or?
No, I was sick of feeling like other people could hurt me. And so it almost made me a bully. It did make me a bully. So if someone looked at me wrong, I would go off, and it was, I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing.
Were you getting in fights or just verbally?
Yeah.
Like you would fight?
Yeah.
Were you a good fighter?
No.
I'm like,
What do you mean?
No, I'm a crier too. So like I'd fight and then I would cry and people would be like, "Oh, you're so tough." But like that wasn't me. And that phase lasted through middle school and that ended there.
Well, yeah, but did you win the fight?
So yeah, some of them.
it's a male perspective.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
I had a lot of siblings growing up, so I knew how to fight if I had to, but it was, I acted like I was a big fighter, but, I'm not. I'm a lover, so.
Phil taught one of our daughters how to throw a punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then one day out of nowhere in the back seat with her brother, she threw one. I didn't like it at all.
Classic.
Yeah. How were you doing in school?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Yep. I was well known for bad grades.
I was well known.
Well known. And I mean, I had an older sibling that, we're very close in age. So we were kind of going through everything the same.
Mm-hmm.
Although I found substance a lot earlier than she did. So she had more of like behavioral issues and schooling issues. So by the time I would get into a school, she was already in there like, all right, the other Massey's here. So let's prepare. But yeah, I mean, I had to take extra classes because I would just sleep. I wouldn't do homework, especially in high school. I completely stopped caring in high school. I would sneak out every single night and do whatever drugs were offered to me. And
well, that is one of those things, right? Like, we know that the brain doesn't complete its development till around age 25 and that substances can keep that. And one of the things that I learned working with students of your age is they just miss out on experiences and being able to be parented in middle school and high school when they're sent off for treatment really young. But sounds like for you weren't having the opportunity to develop with the parents' guidance.
No, I got away with a lot. I don't know how, and I think it's because I look very innocent and I was very quiet, and so a lot of the time adults were like, we're not worried about you. There's other issues we need to worry about that are going on within this world. But after high school, I think that's when it got really bad. A lot of like basement parties, and I started to get myself in toxic relationships, and it wasn't always the other person being toxic. I was the toxic one in situations because of my addiction. And so it was just chaos all the time, 24/7, always drinking, or coming down off of something, or tripping, or just whatever.
What are you doing for money? Are you working after high school?
I was a bum. Honestly, like I worked at a few places. I got fired a few times for coming in smelling like alcohol. But I was a bum. I'd go to bars and be like, hey, can you buy me a shot? Knowing damn well I don't have money to buy anything. Just trying to finesse.
Used to living in your dad's house?
definitely wasn't welcomed there, but I was there. My dad, he's a Vietnam veteran, very strong, very strong-willed, stubborn man, and he cares a lot. Sometimes his caring was locking the door and locking the windows and not talking to me for weeks, and I would still break into my own home. And so, like, I very obviously wasn't welcomed there, but I wasn't taking no as an answer.
I
was like, you're stubborn, I'm stubborn too. I'm your child.
Yeah. I'm gonna get in.
Yeah, but he put a deadbolt on his door because I would go into his room and I'd steal his alcohol, or if he had like painkillers or money, anything. So
Is he recognizing your use?
he did, yeah. So one of the first times I went to treatment, was the first time I think one of the few times I ever saw my dad cry. We were fighting. He had been leaving AA pamphlets around the house. After everybody moved out of the house, it kind of dawned on him, shit, this kid is kind of messed up, and I never realized it. Now she's 21. What do I do? Yeah. So he started to leave little pamphlets around and talk to me. And I would disappear for times at end. And, I came home one day, and I think this was after being hospitalized for one of the few times I had tried to commit suicide. And he just broke down and he said, I want my daughter back. I don't know who you are. I don't recognize you. You're mean and you're sad, and I want my sweet little girl back. And I was like, all right, screw you. I don't care. Like, what do you want from me? I'm not perfect, victim mentality. Mm-hmm. Like, I had this mentality that everybody had hurt me, and everyone owed me everything. And I was drinking, and I deserved to be. But I mean, after a certain point, it was, constantly like a suicide attempt. My use is I didn't care to live or die. I wasn't drinking to get drunk or feel better, get that confidence anymore. I was drinking to the point of blacking out, and I did not want to be in my headspace. I didn't want to be in my body. I had a lot of issues, and that was the only escape that I knew. And yeah, so my dad had broken down, and I was like, I guess I'll go to treatment. I guess. I don't want to, but
you were 21? 21?
21.
And where'd you go?
So I went on Google and I was like, what is the best treatment center I can find to take the insurance I'm under still as far away from Connecticut as possible? So I actually went to treatment in California. And it was amazing.
Like a good plan.
It was amazing experience, but I wasn't fully there.
So
yeah.
You said Google.
Yeah. Googled it.
Your insurance, what insurance did you have?
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And the farthest away you could get?
California.
Those were your criteria.
Yes.
What was the name of the program?
Phoenix Rising.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes. And amazing people. I wasn't fully ready to embrace recovery then, though. I went in there and I was like, I'll stay sober for a year and then I'm probably going to drink again, because
that was your plan?
That was my plan. I was like, let me work on my mental health and then I'll drink again, because it's my mental health that's the problem, not the drinking. Mm-hmm. And it was both. I was pretty messed up and I was very broken. I was very lost, and I went there a broken, naive girl that knew nothing about the world outside of Tallinn, Connecticut, mm-hmm. And my own personal trauma and lived experiences. Right. So that was an eye-opening experience. I had the opportunity to explore and find out what having fun sober looked like and make friends, but I wasn't fully ready. So I was still messing around, I was more into boys and like still attention seeking and breaking the rules that, God bless the directors there for dealing with me, because I was still causing havoc. And I think a lot of it was I didn't know how not to at that point. I think I was very self-destructive, and that's where the havoc came from.
How long did you stay?
So I stayed in that sober living for 9 months.
Wow.
And I was committed to staying out there. And I got into a relationship, and I left that sober living, and I actually was renting a room off Craigslist. And that was my first like on my own experience outside of a sober living. And that was also a horrible experience. Don't go on Craigslist and look for a room to rent.
Oh my God.
But again, I was so naive. I didn't know, and I didn't have anybody to tell me about the world or teach me these life experiences. And like I said, my dad tried his best, but he strong by the book military man born in the 40s. So we didn't talk about a lot of things, and he still to this day struggles with, PTSD from the Vietnam War. So there was a lot of things that didn't shed light on that I didn't know about the world or about how easy it was for other people to take advantage of you. So I learned those lessons on my own.
And then you came back?
Well, what happened with the Craigslist room?
Oh, gosh.
So you said it was terrible. What happened?
Well, it was with this woman. We're good now. Me and this woman, we've made peace. We've come to an amends. But she was in her active addiction. I didn't know that. And so she was doing meth and heroin. And it just wasn't a safe environment to be in.
You think?
Yeah. So, I mean, it ended poorly, but.
Did you end up using?
No.
Oh, wow.
No. I didn't end up using, but I, going back to when I first went into treatment and that mentality of I'm going to stay sober for a year, that mentality started to come back, started to gain that victim mentality back of I'm living in this trap house, right? And there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And crazy shit's happening to me, and I'm sober. Why is this happening to me? And then I experienced grief for the first real time with my close friend committing suicide here in Connecticut, and being far away. And so all these tragic things were happening, and I still didn't know how to cope. So COVID happened, and I'm in this apartment in California, away from my family and friends, and I'm just stewing and stewing and stewing. And I'm thinking of everything bad that's ever happened to me, and I'm broke and I'm lost, and I'm like all this, like I'm a victim in life, and fuck everybody mentality again. So I came up with a plan. I was going to go home on vacation for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, I was going to drink. I was going to let loose and hang out with my old crew and then go back to California like nothing ever happened and live my sober life. Well, I came back here and it was amazing. I was excited to see my dad, be with my family again. As soon as he went to bed, I was out the front door. I was at Schnipsett Lake drinking.
So I just want to go back a little bit. So you were talking about your sober life in California. Were you working a pathway of recovery?
I was. So I was very into AA and 12-step meetings, but I wasn't working the steps. I was trying to go for the community and it honestly wasn't for me. I just couldn't get over my social anxiety. So it was, these big social meetings, and you put a socially anxious person in that, and you're like, nah. And I was so awkward, and that, like, so awkward during the first time of me getting sober, because I didn't know myself sober since 11 years old. So I didn't know how to interact with people. I was just so awkward.
All right. We're back in Tallinn. You're taking a vacation from your sobriety.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a vacation. And I blacked out. And I was also being prescribed Xanax and Klonopin and a bunch of other stuff because of how bad my anxiety had gotten during the lockdown. I remember I went into Walmart and I just dropped to the ground and curled up in a fetal position. I couldn't move. I was having the worst panic attack of my life. So they were like, medicate her.
This was in California? We're in the Walmart?
Yeah. So
no kidding.
So I started struggling again. I was still taking those pills, and I was very familiar with them, and I definitely said the right things to get them. But I was still taking those while drinking, and a 2-week vacation turned into a fire. Just like, I set my life on fire pretty much, and I was back in the hospital, tried to slit my wrists, and my organs within a month were beginning to break down from drinking. I was also doing whatever drugs were handed to me. My thing was, and it's to this day I cringe about like the things that I did when I was messed up, but I would hit anybody up, call everybody, and be like, what are you doing? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to talk? And I also was an emotional person and just a hot mess. And so this random person picked me up, and I was talking about killing myself. So he brought me to the hospital, and I wouldn't get out of the car. So we called the cops, and the cops came and escorted me in the hospital, and they did my blood work, and they were like, you're on the verge of death. Do you realize that? Like, your organs are about to shut down on you.
How long ago was that?
2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah. 3 years is coming up at the end of July, August 1st. And that was the fastest rock bottom. Within a month, I was,
Do you remember trying to slit your wrists?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember what you were feeling then?
Like, my thing is I didn't want to feel anymore. Like the guilt, and especially knowing the consequences now, because I had about a year sober. Yeah. So I had known the consequences. I had known the pain that I was hurting people. And I had done so much progress. And so I had felt so much guilt.
Right.
I stewed in my inner pain, and I was that victim again. So I didn't want to feel any of that. So I just was like,
we're going to end it.
Let me end it.
How did you snap out of this?
My family had an intervention with me. And I was so uncomfortable by it. I was super hungover, wrapped up in a blanket, like, just leave me alone. But I agreed I would go do treatment again, and I knew I needed it this time. And I knew it had to be done. So I had called a few places, and I went back into treatment. My poor Uber driver bringing me to treatment. I went to treatment in New Hampshire at Green Mountain. And so I had about a 3.5-hour drive with a random Uber driver who happened to be a pastor. He gave me a Bible. I was arguing with him about Jesus. I know nothing about religion, never was exposed to it. I was just arguing to argue. But he showed me kindness, and he gave me a Bible. And I remember being drunk in the backseat, joking around, being like, I found God. I found God. Looking back, that was God talking to me. At least my idea of what my higher power, my God, looks like, any Uber driver would have left me on the side of the road. I was not nice. I was not cooperative. I was crying. I was puking. I was just a disgusting person inside and out. And this man sat there and handled me for 3.5 hours while drinking. Yeah.
So what happened at Green Mountain for you?
So Green Mountain was strict. And I needed it. I needed it. And
You didn't rebel.
I opened up my mind. I opened up my heart. I just relaxed myself. I no longer was fighting. I didn't necessarily agree with everything, but I needed saving. So I was going to do anything. I did the 12 steps in like a week. It was like very fast paced. And that was the first time I did that. And I stayed there for about 3 months, and I went to a sober living outside of Boston. And that wasn't for me. That was a little too strict. It was an all-women's house, and I loved the idea of it. But I had known myself. I had already known and been through this, that I knew what I had to do at this point. So I escaped from there.
It must have been really strict if you had to escape.
I packed my stuff. I left when everyone was at work. I left a note on the whiteboard. Sorry, I'm out.
At least you left a note.
My dad picked me up. Yeah.
Wow.
And I went back home, and it was a weird transition because I was back in my stomping grounds, in the house I grew up in, the house where I had felt the most pain and I had done the worst. I overcame a lot because I was still early on in recovery. I think the first night I was back, I actually went to a bar with somebody, and I left. And I was so proud of myself. At the time, I felt so bad. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't be here. You must hate me. But I had left, and I was like, this life isn't for me. And I was 100% truly sober, feeling it, experiencing it, living it. And I was journaling a lot. I was being alone with myself a lot. And that was something I avoided for a long time. I didn't accept myself throughout my addiction and throughout my life. And so a lot of inner healing, a lot of spirituality, a lot of nature is my pathway. I love being outdoors, grounded, outside, bare feet in the woods. That's where you'll find me.
Speaking Phil's love language.
That's what helps me to this day.
So how would you describe your pathway today?
My pathway is custom made by me, is how I like to explain it. I focus on my family, on me and my mental health and my mental well-being. My pathway is love for myself, love for others, nature. There's so many little things that I've kind of custom made to help me stay recovered and stay sober. If I don't stay true to myself, I try to hide who I am. I no longer accept who I am. I get into a dark place. That's me going back into that addiction, so really focusing on that and the things around me.
Do you go to any recovery meetings now?
No. I've become very grateful of all the pain and all the trauma that I've experienced, because I take that and I can help others and relate. And I'm full of gratitude.
Thank you, Katrina. Thanks for sharing your story.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for letting me come here and get out of my comfort zone and share my story. And
yeah, absolutely.
Really well done. Thank you.
Thank you.